What is the dreadful power of the light? And have we lost some sense of that with modernity? Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in 3 different playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being the poetry discussion playlist. Number 2, which is now cruising towards 800 videos, by the way. Number 2 being the Emily Dickinson playlist, now cruising towards 250 videos. And number 3 is the William Blake playlist here on the channel. And today's poem, the sort of front-facing poem of this video is "He Fumbles at Your Soul" by Emily Dickinson. And the reason I want to put this in the William Blake playlist as well is we will be presenting one of the William Blake poems, one of the more common William Blake poems, William Blake poem surely, of which you have heard in this video as well, because I think that these two poems may not be sort of inextricably linked because they are not often talked about together. But I do believe that these two poems have a lot in common if you're looking at the core of the poem, the soul, if you will, of the poem. The poem in question from Emily Dickinson is "He Fumbles at Your Soul," and it reads as such. He fumbles at your soul as players at the keys. Before they drop full music on, he stuns you by degrees. He prepares your brittle nature for the ethereal blow by fainter hammers further heard, then nearer, then so slow. Your breath has time to straighten, your brain to bubble cool, deals one imperial thunderbolt that scalps your naked soul. When winds hold forests in their paws, the universe is still. Now, I want to focus here on hammers, but also he fumbles at your soul. I think in today's sort of sentiments, we think of fumbling at your soul not with the good in mind, not with God in mind, not with so a lot of the conjecture about this poem is that it was written for one of the people who is considered Emily Dickinson's love interest, who was a preacher, right? So we associate these "he fumbles at your soul as players at the keys" type of statements as the devil. It does not appear that this poem is talking about the devil, does it? It appears, it feels, I think, like this is talking about God or a preacher or some type of association with quote unquote the light, with the good. But we don't really present those ideas that way in today's world. So I want to read, probably you see this coming, The Tyger by William Blake to complement this poem. Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heavens with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the Lamb make thee? Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? So I think that both of these poems really concentrate on the dreadful power of the light. I think that you can read the Tyger as a lot of things. Oftentimes, it is sort of interpreted as, did God create the devil himself? Right. I think that both of these poems have some of those sentiments in them, and I think that largely we have transformed in today's world the goodness interpreted as peacefulness. I think that these poems both present goodness as power, which we have seemed to get away from. They try to capture the righteousness of goodness. Sort of both of these poems exist, I think, within the realm of what is known as tough love, right? Sometimes bad has to be, sometimes toughness, sometimes what feels bad has to be gone through in order to arrive at the good. I think that both of these poems encapsulate that. I think that both of these poems take the idea of righteousness and power and the power of righteousness seriously. And I think that perhaps we lost a very large sense of might makes right, I would say, with World War II, because some of the more evil propositions of World War II, some of the more evil um, factions in World War II were really, really powerful, really, really efficient, and really, really good at what they do. And it seems that in the wake of that event on a global scale, we've tried to really do away with the idea that might can make right. This was not the case for most of human history, right? You had people praying to their gods that they would win wars. You had people praying to their gods that they would help them win wars. You had people believing in gods that would take part in human endeavors and wars. And if your side lost in a war, it was sort of interpreted as either your god had abandoned you, you fell out of favor with your god, or simply that the other faction's gods were right. And I think that in a lot of the sort of conflicts that we have gotten to on a world scale, that idea can be terrifying, right? Because people, I think, recognize their religion as the only true religion. And if your side loses, what does that say about your religion? So there's the famous line in Fight Club: if your God, if God abandoned, basically something like if God abandoned us, maybe we don't need Him. And that comes about basically kind of with Nietzsche, right? But I think that the sort of thought process behind it goes much deeper, goes way back in human history. Both of these poems recognize the purification process as painful and possibly, probably dangerous. We also, I think, have gotten away from this. We think of Jesus as the lamb. We think of Jesus as peaceful. We think of Jesus as the cute and cuddly, but we don't really emphasize the anger that Jesus presented at times. And I'm just using Jesus because this is sort of the one of the premier religions of our day, right? Especially the society in which Emily Dickinson would have been writing this poem. But the society in which, the times in which Emily Dickinson was writing this poem, the hellfire and brimstone of the Old Testament was still, I think, more current than it is today. Both of these poems, I think, emphasize that startling and dangerous view of what it would mean to be purified, the way that a hammer purifies steel after it's put through the forge. I think that both of these poems also sort of emphasize the softness that has permeated society, and the idea that if it is painful, it is not good. That is not the truth. Oftentimes, most times, I would argue, what is good will be painful. And having lost that idea, have we become weaker as a society? Have we become weaker in our morals and values and virtues? I think so. And poems like these can return us to those previous mindsets. That is all I have for this poem, this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel, so consider hitting the subscribe button. Stick around for more. There's poetry every Monday, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.